Can I just say as well, just before we go on, I passed a little milestone, as chat are now reminding me. I've just reached 2 million subscribers, as Flav says. Congrats, you just passed 2 million. Hail to the panel and hail chat. Thank you very much, you guys. I appreciate all 2 million of you. Thank you.
We need that Gary clapping sound. You know, the that's the sound. Millions of people very happy right now.
We need to get Dan Bass to sing a song that he doesn't want to.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So thank you.
What a way to celebrate as well. Talking about Rebel Moon. That's just
so I'll cut you over the hump.
Yeah. It truly is, yeah. It's just like everyone was united in their condemnation of that film. But it's probably a good point to leave Rebel Moon behind, actually, so we can move on to happier things, possibly. But, well, yeah, this is going to depend on what you guys have to say, because I haven't seen it yet, but The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is out. And it didn't have the greatest of opening weekends. I think it took in like 9 million on its opening, which is not very good. But the audience score seems to be quite high. So I guess for the guys that have seen it on the panel, what's your impressions of it?
Echo, you want to go first?
Well, it's based off real events of a real commando squad in the darkest years of World War II. And it's also very kind of like a confection, a kind of lightweight film with action scenes full of implausible kills and everything. And I'm not quite sure how I feel about the juxtaposition of those two things. Like if you have a Inglourious Basterds, it's World War II, but it's not actually based on real events per se. So you got more leeway to have goofy elements or not realistic elements. Whereas this, if you have actual real life events where there are actual consequences and stakes, then you have this kind of lightweight, goofy, very playful atmosphere. It's a little bit jarring. Everyone's fun. It's a confection of a film. Everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone contributes. It's got the worst Winston Churchill I've ever seen, and I've probably seen about a dozen of them. He's terrible. So yeah, I mean, it's fine if you want a diversion for a couple of hours. You'll get a few laughs and a few gags. It's very tropey, very set piecey, and that's about it really. There's not too much you can say about it. There was one character who's an actual crazy character. In real life, he was quite a maverick and quite a live wire. And in his post-war report, he just said, landed, killed some Germans, fucked off. That was his military report. So, yeah, it's fun. It's a fun diversion. If you want to check it out, but don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, I would agree. I wrote down, it's like breezy for a World War II movie, Inglourious Basterds light. That's definitely the vibe. I mean, it's captured by the fact that it takes place in World War II. So aesthetically, it looks a lot like Inglourious Basterds, even in the advertisements, which again, like you're captured by the, the World War II era aesthetics there. But the acting is really good. It's typical Guy Ritchie, really. It's what you expect. I think with a lot of his movies, they are really breezy. The dialogue's really quippy and punchy, but kind of forgettable, or not something that's going to stick with you long term. And that really is what this movie is. I know why it opened to $9 million, and it's because, well, most of his movies don't really open large anyway. Aladdin doesn't really count, where it made like $1 billion because it has the IP behind it in Disney, and it was 2019 where everything was making that much money. But his movies usually don't. It kind of seems like it's in that range. It was even made for $60 million, so it was like it was lower budgeted. I'm sure they weren't expecting $9 million, but I wouldn't go to the theater to watch this. Like, I would watch this at home. So it seems like it made about as much as it probably should. Like if this came out 10 years ago, it probably would be a movie that you'd want to go to the theaters to see, but it's just not that way anymore. Like this feels like it belongs on streaming.
I think it's too big scale for him. Sorry to disrupt. I just think the world is a bit too big scale. Like you want a lock stock thing where it's kind of smaller scale and intermittent character development and stuff, and you can really work on the aesthetics. Yeah. Whereas this is jumping around for too many storylines, and the stakes kind of feel forced, and the historical kind of relativism is really strange. So I don't think it's quite the right fit for him.
If I'd gone to the cinema like 20 years ago and seen this movie, I would have been really disappointed because there would have been way better movies that you could see. I liked about a third of the movie, and it is their group. It's the guys when they're together, their conversation, their sort of banter. I liked the action scenes that they did, and I liked Henry Cavill when he was communicating with everyone, and there's a whole scene of all the people. He's just completely ignoring them and just nicking random parts and completely disrespecting his bosses. But it's like, you need me, what are you going to do kind of thing. And that's kind of why they chose him. I thought their sections were great. There's also like a second movie running concurrently, which I don't think has any place in the movie at all. And it's the guy and the woman, and all their basic scenes, they're not needed for the plot. They don't really do anything. And it feels like tacked on. That it's like, well, we've got all these guys here. Well, we're going to need something else because we can't just have a film about men killing people. And so they added that in. And I felt the same when, I don't know if you've seen The Beekeeper, but in that, I liked his action scenes. I liked his entire storyline. But there's also this weird police scene, which runs parallel to it and has absolutely no purpose being in the movie. And so I felt like I was watching two separate timelines, and one of them shouldn't have been there. And I think if you cut all of that and just had more of the guys, then you would have ended up with something more like The Expendables or something, and it would have been, I would have really liked it.
Yep, I completely agree with that. I thought so it follows essentially like the people who are going to be doing the objective mission itself, and then the people who have to do all the espionage action, because like they're trying to essentially they're trying to blow up what is it called, a U-ship or something along those lines?
U-boat.
U-boat. So they're trying to blow that up. So they need someone to basically do the distraction. They're going to have a party, and then Henry Cavill and his gang are going to do the actual mission. So you're following those two stories. And I actually really enjoyed the lead actress's performance. But at one point I wrote down, like, why are we still with these people? Like, we're still here. I actually really liked Henry Cavill. I thought he was really funny. And I appreciated that it was just a crew of 4 with them. So I was like, oh, maybe we'll actually get to have a really strong banter with these characters. But they stuck with the other two the majority of the time. And you really didn't need to. That wasn't even the selling point of the movie.
Yeah, the seductress scenes and that whole plot element was really tedious after a while. And you could, in your own head, I mean, in your own head, you could tell, I know exactly what this is going to do. I know what the plot beats are. And you're right, like it should have been done like an Ocean's 11 kind of thing, where you got zippy little montages between the things and how people coordinated and get a bit of momentum to it. But it was so sluggish during those scenes.
I think, based on what you're describing, I think a World War II movie done in that style, it's like a heist. We've got to plan it. We've got all the kind of crazy plans that we've got to implement to make it happen. And like this big diverse team of people with different skills, like that could be a lot of fun. I think that would work nicely by itself.
Well, it seemed like the other group were literally there to be the diverse group, the ones on the
because they paired them together that way.
They're literally talking to the mid-century Germans. We know how they'd act, but they were like clapping back at them when they're leaders. It's like, you would just got shot in the head. They're not going to have their mouth back at them. What is it? And there were some very weird comments. And the way she gets found out is she's just singing a song. And at one bit, she sings Yiddish rather than German. And you're like, you're a professional spy and you don't even know what language you're
well, it's
speaking?
like Inglourious Bastards. That scene reminded me of Inglourious Bastards, where the bar scene when he gave himself away, when he said "Tre Grazia" or whatever.
But that was a very subtle thing.
Right, that was subtle, and it was really good. And this was just, I'm just like, this is like a shitty version of that.
The Great Escape. The Great Escape has a similar thing when he's talking to a guy, they're going through it all in German, and then as he's walking away, he says something like, have a good day. Yeah.
No, he says, good luck to him.
Thank you. And he trips him up. Whereas in this, she's just singing a song. She's under no pressure at all. And she just sings in a different language for a bit.
There's a lyric that's Yiddish, and that tips him off.
Yeah.
So the problem there is that you can never quite settle, because most of the people in the cast are caricatures, so you can't take them seriously and the stakes aren't very high. But that the black guy and the woman are more trying to be fully fledged characters. And so you get this weird push and pull, which doesn't quite sit right. So that was a big flaw in the film.
They struck me a lot of the time as the writers going, well, if I was there, this is what I would have said. I would have told them what for. Like, no, you wouldn't. And if you did, you'd be dead. And so everything about those scenes just kind of grated.
Yeah, there was that scene where she's sitting and talking with the main villain, who is played by a brilliant actor. I can't remember his name. He's more of like a character actor. You've seen him a million times. But again, it was almost like that a scene in Inglourious Bastards where he's like where Landa was talking with the girl that escaped at the beginning of the movie, who ends up burning down the theater. It reminded me of that scene, just not done as well, or a little more forced. And I don't like that in movies when it reminds me of better films. It's just not, and especially when you know a movie like this is going to be compared to something like Inglourious Basterds so much, because it's the exact same idea. And I know this was based on the true story, but weren't those files uncovered in like 2014 and Inglourious came out in like 2009? So I don't even know if that was coincidence or anything, but regardless, like the comparison's going to happen.
It's a shame because like Guy Ritchie at his peak, I think would be a good match for Quentin Tarantino in terms of like smart, quippy dialogue, like really inventive filmmaking. But from what you're describing here, this is not peak Guy Ritchie.
No,
no.
Which is
the
weird.
The worst parts of the movie I really
strong.
liked. It's just you needed to cut a load out and focus on the good bits. Is kind of the problem.
Yeah. He's a weird one.
There's a few times I laughed out loud too. It's nice to actually like watch a movie, and there are a few scenes where I burst out laughing. So,
like especially the Henry Cavill scenes. Like, if you ever like, I like Cavill. Like he was decent in this movie. It is a case of this is what Hollywood should have been doing all along, kind of thing. When you see him do these kind of roles.
But I don't like seeing him doing these roles. I don't like him in Argyle or in this, where it's kind of a little sort of campy and lightweight, and he just feels like
he was good in The Man from Uncle. That's a similar kind of thing.
Just feels like he's squandering himself. It's kind of weird.
I mean, I assume he gets a bit more screen time than he did in Argyle, which was like 4 minutes or something.
Yeah, he is the leader in this, so
he is. But I would still argue he doesn't really get a lot of screen time because of the fact. I mean, in comparison to what you'd expect, because of the fact that second story steals away so much of the runtime.
But if you just focus on the scenes with all the guys, if you kind of could extend that to a full movie, then he would take like the primary role in the movie. It would have been a great movie.
You needed to have them sitting around a table and elaborately discussing how the Nazis had come to their village when they were young.
That's a great. There was a really weird bit actually where they're talking about how he reinforced the ship, and they start to go, "You can't. That's not how that works. You can't just reinforce the ship. You can't just stick steel plates in it and have it be armored." And then one guy basically just goes, "Turn your brain off. It'll be fine." It's like he's talking to the audience that were about to get tiki. It was quite weird.
It's like that bit in Austin Powers where they're talking about time travel and all the paradoxes you can cause, and it's just like,
oh my god, I've gone blind.
Just go back there and have fun, Austin, and don't worry too much about it. And that goes for you too.
It's because they did push back. There was a guy going, "Yeah, but how does it work?" He's like, "No, just stop." And then they just carry on. It's weird.
I was Alan Richardson in it as well, because people don't seem to like him anymore, and they seem to be kind of rooting for the movie to fail just because of him. And
that was a shame that happened in literal fucking days.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. He was actually pretty funny in this movie, but he doesn't have a major role. But what he does have, his lines are pretty quippy and pretty funny.
He's supposed to be playing a 19-year-old, which is really strange.
What?
Yeah, because he's like
what?
mid-40s.
I didn't get that at all. I didn't know that.
Really?
I mean, I know people generally looked older back in like the 40s, but not that old.
Yeah.
If you know that your audience is primarily a kind of like a very kind of dude-ish thing, then maybe don't go on social media and kind of diss their interests and stuff. It's not that much of a big thing to try and restrain yourself for. Very strange.
Yeah, I'm not a separate the art from the artist kind of person. I think it's kind of natural that I have this, like, it's like with the Hulk. Whenever I see him, all I see is a Twitter feed, and it does affect my ability with the character. So I think that actors should probably just keep quiet, because it's the best way you can do it, and that way you're not going one way or the other. But in this movie, like, he's a talented actor and he plays the part well. So depends how attached you are to the comment.
I feel so sorry for my conservative friends who really got a beef with Mark Hamill now. That must be so difficult. No, Luke Skywalker, don't.
For me, it's like, because I saw the Star Wars stuff before, Mark Hamill, it doesn't really affect me, and he does a lot of voiceover work and stuff. I think for me, it's more when new stuff comes out, if someone's really been going hard, then you don't like the person, and so when the movie comes out, it's like, I already kind of don't like the movie. I'm like predisposed not to go and see it. So it's rather than the movie being spoilt for you because of it, it's like, no, I just won't go.
Man, I prefer it that way as opposed to actors just getting fired for what they say. So that'll allow me to actually make the choice if I want to go see the movie or not.
It depends on what you say, though, I suppose, whether or not you get fired.
There are boundaries, but
yeah.
Depends on what you say, how much you say it, who you say it about, where you said it, why you said it. Because that's the thing, right? People speculate on whether or not he did it to ingratiate himself with potential other groups. Could also just be something he wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's fair enough. And I guess regardless of whether, what side of the political divide you happen to be on, if you're an actor, my advice would always be the same. Just shut the fuck up and just do movies and talk about the movies. Talk about how
there are
fun it was.
Actors out there who advise that, but nobody listens to them.
Yep.
No one wants to listen to Keanu.
Yeah. Isn't it Kurt Russell, Keanu, and I think Anthony Hopkins has said something along these lines. Like, actors, we're all idiots. Like, we can just...
yeah.
And I think all three of them are, I would say people are generally chill with Anthony Hopkins, Kurt Russell, and Keanu Reeves. Like, I don't think there's too many haters out there for them. So, it's probably worth keeping in mind, actors, if for some reason any of you are watching Open Bar, which is pretty unlikely.